everybody. I am International Nanny Association. No, I'm Sue Downey. I am a board member on the International Nanny Association, and I've been a member for a long time. I also organize a conference for nannies called Nannypalooza. You might have heard of it. You might have been to it, which is coming up in October, and I can certainly answer questions about that at the end if you have any. I've been a nanny for, gosh, I lost count somewhere after 25, but somewhere between 25 and 30 years now, I think, for a variety of different kinds of families, most of them larger families, um, and most of them for a longer time period. I tend to stick with families for a while because really, uh, what if you do a good job of interviewing, it's easier. And I've been lucky. Let's face it. It's some of it, a lot of it is luck, and hard work of training a family. Um, so I've quit jobs on good terms. I've done a bad job of leaving a couple of times. And in my work as an advocate for nannies and working with nannies for Nannypalooza and on the local level, I've also um, I've also helped a lot of nannies through this process, which is like taxes and death, right? There's all every nanny job has a cycle, and there's always a beginning and there's always an ending. It's just part of it. We know that it happens. We don't always have enough resources or enough support or knowledge on how to deal with it. So I started teaching this class some time ago, and I've been updating it and working on it as I've gone along, and I'm hopeful that it will be helpful to you. So I'm gonna just jump on in, and like uh, like Jen said, if you have a question, if you can type it in the chat, that would be great. I'm super excited that you're all here tonight. This is awesome. And I'll try to answer them as I go, or as I go if it's relevant, or I'll save them for the end. And what I'm hoping to do is sort of buzz through the information I have to present to you, and then be able to help with any additional questions. Oh, except I can't see the I can't see the chat when I'm presenting. So I'll keep trying to check it, but just we'll get to
Sue, I'll let you know if you have any relevant questions.
Okay, perfect. And if you have to go, Jen, we can always get to them at the end too. Totally fine. Okay, so hop on the bus, Gus. So some of you are much younger than me, but if you're my age, which is old, you might remember this great song that goes, "Hop on the bus, Gus. No need to do something, Roy, Joy." I don't know. I can't remember it right now because I'm on the spot, but it's basically a song about leaving your lover. In this case, I use this because there's not one right or wrong way to leave a family, whether it's your choice or not your choice. Every nanny family dynamic is different. There's millions of ways that this is going to play out. So I'm going to give you some generalities and some things that we can sort of use, but really remember that individually this is going to be your journey with your family and your kids, and it's going to be different for everybody no matter what, you try to do. But the one thing is true is that it's never easy, whether it's your choice, whether it's not. And we're going to talk a little bit about how it's different, whether it's your choice to leave or whether you're let go or you become obsolete, the kids get older, or however it happens. But it's never easy. And some things that you're going to go through, no matter how that separation happens, it's going to be the same, whether you are the one to leave or not. And that's my nephew when he was tiny. And now he's almost done with his coursework in the Army, and he's all grown up. Sorry. So when it's your choice, the big question I get a lot of times is, when is it the appropriate time to leave? Now, nobody can answer that question for you except for you. You're going to have to figure it out. Usually nannies stay longer than they should probably. in toxic situations. However, since there's the internet nanny groups, either the social media ones or whatever, there's a lot of people who will constantly, like, one thing goes wrong or you have one bad whatever, and they're like, you need to leave that job. That seems to be like the answer. And I would disagree. I would say if you're unhappy, and I don't mean just I'm sad to go to work because I wish that I won the lottery and I was living on Hawaii with a boy feeding me grapes all day. I mean, like, really unhappy. Like, you dread it. You start thinking on Saturday night at like 9 o'clock, oh, I only have one more day. I don't want to go to work. Um, it needs to be most of the time because let's face it, we'd all rather not be working. Um, and and then the big thing is, have you honestly tried to resolve the conflicts? So whatever the issue is, whether you feel disrespected, whether you feel um, they leave the house a mess and you don't appreciate it, all of those things. Before you give up a situation that could be great, if there are issues, you should try to resolve them. Have the tough conversation. Sit down and say, I really love this job, except I'm having this problem. I'd like to brainstorm ways that we can try to approach this and make it a win-win situation for everyone. And that's a whole nother webinar, right? Like having those tough conversations. But you have to honestly ask yourself if you have had those conversations, because here's what happens. If you leave a family, because let's just pick, they're always leaving dirty dishes in the sink and you never say anything to them, but that's why you leave that family. I could almost place money in Vegas that the next family you come to, you're going to get the same thing, because learning how to navigate those conflicts is how you become stronger and better as a professional, and it sets you up to be in a different situation the next time. So really make yourself have those tough conversations. And if you need resources on that, I have some for you. And then the other big reason I think that it's appropriate to consider leaving is if your job description has changed in a way that you're not comfortable with. And this is often when the kids get older and and they either change your responsibilities from, toddler care to school age kids, or toddler care to house management. You started taking on tasks that you didn't agree to. Or it could be the other way around. Maybe they have a new baby and you're not as comfortable with that, or any number of things. But again, have the conversation first. Like, I don't agree to these and new responsibilities, or it seems like you need a housekeeper and I'm not willing to take this on. But if they're like, oh no, this is now part of the job, then maybe it's time to leave. When it is time to leave and it's not your choice, so you can be terminated for lots of reasons. Some of them are not punitive at all. Some of them are because you work for a family that is in fact being maybe very negative or whatever. You still have power. So this is important. Ready? Even if it's not your choice to leave, how you leave is your decision. So they fire you on Monday, you are told you have to leave, you aren't given the permission to see the kids, whatever, you still have choices all along that way of how to handle that situation. And so it's really important to know that in this profession, previous employers carry a lot of weight with future employers. So you're going to want to handle this as professionally as you can. Find another way to offload that frustration, and make sure that you are doing what's best for the kids, that you're not airing toxic, dirty feelings in front of kids. Do whatever you can to make a bad situation better and be the adult. And sometimes being the adult means keeping your mouth shut and just, letting it slide off of your back. That doesn't mean that you're being weak or that whatever. It's making the situation as well as you can. And at some point, you have to also just leave, and cut off contact, and that does happen. You'll know when that happens and when you can't go any further. um, but just remember, it feels like you're powerless when you get let go from any job and any profession. It feels like you don't have control, but you do, because you still have all these choices to make as things go through. So you're going to tell the family. True story number one. These are some crazy stories I'll share with you. Great, wonderful nanny, so devoted to the kid. One child, 2 years old. Nope, 3 years old. Take that back. Lovely. Had all these conflicts with the family. She, of course, being a nanny and a younger nanny at that, wasn't good at confronting them. Family had no idea she was unhappy. She decides she's had enough. She writes a note. She puts it in the stroller that stays in the garage. She leaves the normal way that she always leaves on Friday and never returns to the family. They go out to get the kid in the stroller on Saturday morning and find this beautiful letter about how she loves their child so much, but she's just unhappy and she has to leave. And that's it. They never hear from her again. She could never work as a nanny again because she had worked for this family for like 3.5 years. Couldn't explain why she couldn't use them as a reference. Like, and think of what she did to that poor kid. Like, that's just so traumatic to me in so many ways. Parents didn't know how to explain it to the little girl. There was never a goodbye. It's just crazy. It is so easy to get in a position where you feel like overwhelmed and whatever. But the minute that you start the process of leaving a family, you're not only starting the grief process for everyone, which we're going to talk about, but you're also writing your recommendation as you do this. So think about every step that you make. Stick to the work agreement. Hopefully you have a contract. Hopefully that contract spells out how much notice you're supposed to give. Everybody always asks me how much notice. I think that it's only fair to give at least a month's notice if they're going to continue to need nanny care. And here's why I tell people that. Because if you're going to search for a new nanny, you need at least a month to really find a good candidate. And even if you're super angry at the parents for whatever reason, you don't want the kids to have a bad nanny. You want them to have a good nanny. You've done all this work. You've put in all this time. So giving them a month's notice, I think, is the proper. Now, again, there's always going to be exceptions. Something really heinous happens, whatever. But at all costs, you should stick to whatever contract you signed, whether that's 2 weeks or whatever. Think about treating the family the way that you want to be treated and start building the groundwork for your future relationship with them, even if it's just going to be you want to see the kids occasionally. Right from the beginning of your employment. Never promise a kid, I done it and it wasn't good and I still feel guilty. Never promise a kid you're going to be their nanny forever. When they start talking like that, you just have to say very carefully and very truthfully, I'll love you forever. I'll love you forever. That's all you have to say. You don't have to say someday I'm going to leave. I had a kid once, we watched Mary Poppins. She didn't care about any of the rest of it. All she saw was that the nanny was leaving someday. She was bereft. She hated it. It was horrible. She cried for days. Some kids, they can't handle that depending on where they are. But you can be honest. You cannot make promises that you can't keep. And that's important. Life lessons. So here's the thing. When you leave the family, it's a loss. It's a grief process, much like if you lose a loved one or a friend. It's the same sort of grief process that you would go through if you miss a pet or whatever. Unfortunately, because we're nannies, it's not something that other people outside the nanny industry understand. But if you look at it from psychological way, it's the same kind of grief. You're losing it. And even if you're going to keep a relationship with the kids, it's going to be different. So you're still grieving losing that nanny family dynamic and position with the kids. So you have to go through the stages of grief, and we're going to talk about them. But at the same time, you're also have to keep in mind that the family and the kids are going to be going through these things too. So Kubler-Ross was a famous psychiatrist, and she created these 5 stages. You've probably heard of them. If you haven't, we're going to talk about them really quick. And when she created them, her intention wasn't to say, here's a timeline from A to Z of how it's going to be when somebody in your life dies. What she was saying is, when you're dealt a catastrophic news, when you have a major or a minor sometimes loss in your life, these are the emotions that you may go through. There's stages that you sort of work through, and it can help you if you can identify them and see them in other people and talk about them in these terms. It is not a roadmap, nor is this going to be the same for everyone. But it can be as simple as, you know, I read an article she wrote, and she said, at Christmas time, if you're driving around and you miss that parking spot you want, you might go through all the stages of grief because it's catastrophic to you that you can't get that parking spot. It also could be if you are given a diagnosis for a health condition, like if you were told you have cancer, you might go through these, or a loss of a pet, or a relationship is somehow changed, or trauma. We all probably, the whole world is going through some stages of grief for the things that we've missed being through this pandemic in the last 2 years. So it's a lot of things, but it is helpful as we look at this for nannies to see. So there's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Again, they're not in any specific order. They're not like a linear thing. So what it looks like is a denial might look for a nanny. You know that you have to look for a new job, but you may be delayed. And it may be even unconsciously, you might not even notice it. You're responding late to emails to new agencies. You haven't updated your resume. You put off interviewing. That parents also in denial this happens a lot. They hear this news. First, usually families get angry. Then they go into denial, and you're like leaving in a week, and they haven't even started the process, and then they're going to start asking you to stay and blah. So that getting stuck is sort of the denial. Now with kids, a lot of times, most of these things, they're going to act out in different ways depending on their developmental stage or whatever. But you'll notice unusual behavior once they know. And it can look, if they're going through some denial, they might just not want to ever talk about it, or they may be doing other behaviors, just abnormal behavior. Anger is the first one. So it makes me, advice I often give, because I see it online always, is the nanny will tell the family very nice and very responsibly with lots of notice in a way she thinks is, appropriate. It's time for me to move on. I blah, blah, blah. Right. And, I always say, try not to give too many details. Like you don't want to give them a laundry list of why you're leaving. You just say, it's not a good fit for me. That's the key line. And you can keep saying it in different ways. It's just not a good fit. It's not right for me right now. This is, a great time for me to look for a different situation. We'll get into that later, but keep that in mind. So when the nanny is angry, she's going to start finding fault with all these little things that maybe never used to bother you. Where the shoes are, why they didn't tell you until the last minute that company is coming for dinner tonight. They forgot to refill the diaper bin, and they hardly ever do those things, but it makes you white hot with anger because, and often it makes you feel justified. See, I was right to leave, because you're angry, because you're leaving, and that's hard. And again, whether it's your decision or not, you're still probably going to be angry at some point, because that's part of the process. The family, this is almost always the first reaction for a family. It's like anger, and then often they'll like stop talking to you for a day or two, and they don't know how to process that because they probably didn't see it coming, or even if they did, it's their first thought, I guarantee you, is what am I going to do now? I have to keep going to work, and I had this person I trusted, and maybe it wasn't perfect, but I still knew that the kids were safe with him or her. And now this big, giant, enormous asteroid is coming towards them in this big way. So their initial reaction is often going to be anger. And that's so hard for a nanny who's doing all the things that she thought was right to leave this position, and maybe even for altruistic reasons. I left a job once because I knew I wasn't the nanny they needed anymore. They needed a different skill set. The kids were all older. They needed somebody who was more organized than me. I took them as far as I could, but it wasn't good for any of us. But even in that situation, there's still anger because we're leaving each other. It's like a teenager leaving mom and dad. They got to act out for a while first. So the family's going to justifiably be angry. And hopefully it only lasts a little bit, and then they can, move on to other things. But be ready for it, because it's not real and it doesn't last. It is real, but it's not going to be where they end up, right? And then kids often, once they know, not all, some kids I feel like don't get as angry because they don't really see it. It might happen later. But, they maybe cling more to mom and dad. This can be very hurtful as a nanny when you had a very loving relationship with kids and all of a sudden you're like stinky socks. Okay, so bargaining. So remember, I was talking about you don't want to go into a lot of specifics, because here's what happens. I am leaving this job because I want to make more money. Great, I'm going to give you more money. Well, are you really leaving the job because you want more money? Because then you should have just said, I would like a raise, instead of I'm leaving because I want more money. Because then they would just say, oh, great, let's talk about a raise. The family's not going to change their personality, nor are they going to be happy paying more money if they knew that you were going to quit or they did this, right? First of all, no family's going to change their whole personality. So if you're leaving a family because they're always leaving a mess, they're not going to all of a sudden one day wake up and be like, oh, great, we are now the home edit from Netflix, and we organize everything in colors and put everything away on Sunday night, and you're never going to have to do anything that's not in your job description ever again. And if they say that to you and you say yes, it's going to be like that for a week, and then you're going to be right back to where you are, because they're trying to bargain. They're trying to change things. You may end up with a raise, but that's not the way to go about it. And it's a very dangerous game to play, to put yourself in that position of I'll quit or I need more money. I think if you want to be paid more, you have every right, and you should go and talk to a family about wanting to be paid more. If they can't make it, then that's a different thing. But again, it goes back to, if it's your time to leave, make sure you've addressed all the issues first. So then when you go to the time it's quit, you've tried to address those things. They're not going to change. So now it is honestly not a good fit for you anymore. And then here's the problem for you. So they come to you and they're like, oh, well, we haven't done anything yet. Maybe you could stay a little bit longer. And you're like, oh, well, I could stay a little bit longer. Maybe things will get better. They're not going to really change. They might get better for a short time. But generally speaking, it's not going to be good. And then the kids will say things to you that just break your heart. Like, was it me? If it was me, then, or even if they don't say it's me, I'll keep my room cleaner. I'll, do this and do that. And so it's really important for you to stick to that same sort of language with them. It's just my time to go. It's just, this is time for me to go. Vague, you don't want to give them real um, reasons, real ones or fake ones. So depression, we all sort of know what that looks like, but there's, you know, you can get stuck pretty deeply into this, and if you already have, you know, issues or triggers or things, you can really get lost in a black hole, and it can happen faster than you think. So watch for yourself. You might eat, drink more, smoke, be indifferent, sleep more, a general feeling of sadness, um, lack of communication is a big one for families. You know, they stop including you in things. They aren't moving towards getting a new nanny. They don't want to talk to you about it. Um, and then you'll notice again with the kids, behavior changes, sadness. Um, it's super, depression is so difficult. And this isn't like clinical depression, but it can feel like that or it can look like that sometimes. Um, Obviously, not the same thing. So then we get to a point where we start to accept it. And so at this point, you've kind of gone through some of that other stuff. And again, not in necessarily a line, not all of the stages. Maybe you don't get angry. Maybe you don't go through depression. Like it doesn't, you know, it's not going to be everything. But this is when you start to see some movement. You start to talk with each other about the changes in your relationship. You start to look for new nanny or new job. And the kids, this is great because you'll notice that they're sort of in this place of accepting it when they start making plans for you to visit, or how are you going to stay in touch in the future? What's that going to look like? And I love it when they'll come to me, and we always talk about when I'm not your nanny anymore, we get to make new rules. Because, you know, Nanny Sue would not say yes to dessert before dinner. But when we're friends, you know, we can break those rules. These are things that we can look forward to once you're ready to start being in that. So we go through the stages in large and small ways all of the time. I also like this new model about grief, which I think is really helpful, and hopefully you guys have seen it online. It made the rounds. Grief is like a box with a ball inside of it, and the ball at the beginning is giant, and as time goes on the ball gets smaller, but in the box is a little button. It's usually red in the pictures of it. I'm sorry I didn't find a picture of it to put on, but there's a button, and every time the ball touches that button it's painful. So when the ball is big at the beginning of your grief process, that ball's hitting that pain button all the time. And I don't know if any of you have gone through a major loss in your life. I'm sure most of you have. That's like you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like sobbing, or you see something in a window and you're just like, you're just sad all the time because this giant ball is rolling around all the time and hitting that button over and over. But as time goes on, the ball shrinks, which means that it hits that button of pain a little less often, and it keeps getting smaller and smaller until that button gets pressed, you know, maybe once a month, once every 6 months. It's less and less. But every time the button gets pushed, that pain is real and it's deep and it's fresh for that moment. So it's not like it ever goes away. I still mourn in some ways for the kids from my very first nanny job, you know, a bajillion years ago. And there's still times when we used to go feed the ducks. So sometimes I'll like see a duck and it'll just remind me of them, and I'm sad or sometimes sentimental about missing them. So it's always going to be with you. You just have to know that those moments are going to happen, and then remember. I also think it's interesting. There's some talk about thinking of grief as a person who walks with you. So each time you go through grief, there's a person that's walking with you who's that loss, and becoming friends with that, and being able to say, I miss those kids. I miss that family. I miss the times that we had. And being able to think about the good times and celebrate those as this person walks with you, knowing that it's still going to hurt a little bit, but you'll keep going forward together. You're never going to quite let go of each other. So let's talk about, look, that's my first nanny job. Look at my hair. Holy moly. And that's little Ryan, who now is like 34, I think. Oh my gosh. Anyway, and has a kid of his own. So with the kids, giving them permission to feel all the feelings is really important. So when they crawl up on your lap and they're sad, it's okay. I'm sad too. That's all you have to say. Just give them permission. Tell them it's okay. You feel it too. Mommy and daddy feel it too. You're angry at me? Great. I'm angry too. I'm angry at the situation. And sometimes it's okay to be angry at me. It's okay. I get angry with you too, and then it goes away, right? So giving them permission, using language that assures them that you're going to love them. We all know that you're 99.9% of the time, it's not the kids. That's never the reason that nannies leave, right? The kids are the easier part to negotiate through. So being honest with them about how it's not them, that you love them, it's just a time for me to leave. All nannies have to leave. And then finding concrete ways, especially with younger kids, that they can share those feelings and anxieties. Grief demands expression. Finding ways to express that grief, drawing, painting, singing, dancing, punching pillows when we're angry, or stomping our feet, or whatever it is. And then being concrete as you make a journey forward with the kids. So one of the most important things, I think, is if you're in a position where you can, with the parents' permission, to put dates on a calendar and count out how many days. Now, you want to give some space because there's likely a new nanny coming on board after you. So you want to make sure that you're giving them some space to start to bond with the new person. But make a date. Maybe it's a month away. Maybe it's 30 days. Maybe it's more. Maybe it's less. Whatever feels right to you. Put the date on a calendar somewhere, or write the date on a piece of paper and stick it on their wall. Maybe make a paper chain of how many days it is, and they can rip a chain every day until they get to see you the next time. Or tally marks if they're older. Let them see that you have a plan, that you are not walking out that door without an idea of when you're going to see them next, if at all possible. Again, some of this depends on the situation. But so a self-addressed stamped envelope, I know it's old school, but kids do love mail. And even if you're going to do that, but if you're more new school or younger, or the kids are a little bit older and have access to electronics, setting up an email address, maybe it's a private email address that each of you only has for each other, or maybe it's your normal email addresses, but make sure that they have access of a way to reach out to you, and a way that's fairly independent for them to reach out to you whenever they want. You can decide if it makes sense to give them a phone number or texting privileges with your kids, but that should also be something that you discuss with the parents, because kids do need to bond with a new caregiver. So that may be something that you want to wait on or hold on to. I love this idea. So I've done it a couple of times. You can get like a little journal, and they sell them like just these little, like just a little, oh, it's the same color as the backdrop, but it's just a tiny journal. It doesn't have to be very big, and it shouldn't be, because that could feel overwhelming. Get a journal, write something in it, leave it with the kid. Then the next time she sees you or he sees you, he brings it and he writes something in the journal and leaves it for you. Or if you get a small one like that, it costs like $2 to mail back and forth to each other. So you could start a traveling journal, and it doesn't have to be, oh, I'm so sad without you. It could be favorite memories that you have. It could be just drawings, pictures, funny jokes, just some form of communication to keep that line open. and keep it going as long as the kids seem interested in it. Um, I think most nannies do this instinctually, like make a scrapbook or frame a photo, or in these days you can even, make a little video montage that they can play. Make sure you talk to the parents about how they would access that, but something so that they have a concrete way of looking and remembering all those good times. And this is a big one. So if they're getting a new nanny, let's make sure that you include the kids in the preparations for the new nanny. Brainstorm a list of what she's going to need to know, what's important to her, where the favorite places are. Okay, so these are just some words that I've used before that have been successful. So kids don't always, especially young ones, don't always know what this actual physical feeling is that they feel, right? They're When you are saying goodbye to someone you love, your chest hurts, your heart hurts. And I always tell the kids, my heart hurts because when things grow, they get bigger, and sometimes that can hurt. Just like you might have pains in your legs when you're growing. Now your heart hurts a little because it's growing. It's making room for new people to come into your life, and that's going to be exciting. And that's part of growing up. It's sometimes it hurts a little. Um, uh, I was a nanny because it's my job, but loving you is my choice, and I won't ever stop. And guess what? That line is from The Nanny. There's an episode in that Fran Drescher show called The Nanny, which had nothing to do with nannying, really, except this one line that she used where she tells the little Gracie, I'm your nanny because it's my job, but I love you because it's my choice. And I thought that was so beautiful, and I now steal it. But I always tell everybody where it's from. And then I talked about being friends now instead of nanny and child. And you can decide, like, you guys know your own words, but just finding things that work to explain what's happening. Okay, so now the parents. So this is a lot trickier, right? Because there's all these emotions and all this stuff going on. But true story number 3 or 4, whatever we're on, once I quit a job that I loved because the parents continually kept the kids up late at night, which made my job super hard in the day. Now, that was young Sue Downey, and she was a little bit of an idiot. However, I when I quit, I tried to not say anything, and then they just kept asking me, and I just said, well, listen, here's what happened. Like last night, I heard you guys in the pool. It was 10 o'clock at night. I had to wake up the kids. Like, I just think it's not fair that you're like hurting your kids by keeping them up at night. What the heck was I thinking? Like, why would you ever make a value statement like that on a parent? You wouldn't. Even if you're right, even if I was right, you never want to quit a job by telling parents they're doing a bad job parenting. That's just not good for anyone. They're not going to listen to that advice. They're not going to hear it because there's so much anger and it's just not great. Even if you said it in the best way possible, that's not the moment. So just try to leave the value judgments and again, be honest and direct, but you don't have to tell them everything. You don't have to tell them all of the reasons that you're leaving. It's not a good fit right now. I'm really sorry. I've enjoyed my time with you. It's been great. It's just not a good fit right now. Empathize and keep saying over and over again, I know this is hard, but I want to leave the best way for the kids. It'll be great for me. I know we're angry at each other right now, but it would be great for me with the kids and better for them in the long run and not break all the trust that we've built if I can make a date to see them. Can I come and babysit, in a month or 2? We need to do what's right for the kids. If you focus that, it's hard for parents to object because they want to do what's right for the kids too, no matter how angry they are. So again, from the minute that you start this process of leaving this family, you're writing your letter of recommendation because they're not going to remember the last 6 years where you were amazing. They're going to remember the last 100 days, at least at first. Eventually, whatever. So 100% to the end. even if it's not fair. Sorry, that's being a nanny. You know, I think you really need to go above and beyond. Ask for a ceremony of goodbye. Families are not necessarily going to offer this, even though they should, and even though some will. Some families are still angry or depressed or in denial. So say, I would like, we're all leaving on good terms, so I would like to have family dinner one last time and have ice cream and cake to say goodbye. Or I'm not getting along so great with the parents. I would like to take the kids to our favorite park one last time and have a popsicle or whatever. Ask for the ceremony of goodbye. Um, Again, if you just start doing those things without including the parents in them, you're just putting up walls that are just making it harder. Um, we talked about making future plans. Ask for your letter of reference if you're uh, if you're worried about that. Um, I think that being honest and direct again will be helpful. I love a letter of reference. I need to start interviewing for jobs. I'd like to be able to talk about my employment here. It's so much easier if I have a letter, and then somebody may contact you. Um, it's great if you can, and if you're in the mood and you've had a great experience, to leave some sort of a bit of information for the next nanny, with the schedule, phone numbers, directions, somebody's favorite outfit, where the things are. Um, if you put this together, make sure you show it to mom and dad, because again, it demonstrates your professionalism in all of this. And make sure to put in your new contact information and how you prefer to be contacted by the family and the kids. And then give yourself some time to grieve. Find sensory outlets. So it's a good time to take up, again, grief demands self expression. Take up painting. Get yourself some Play Doh. Find something that you can do that's tactile, or go on a wine tasting trip, or something that's a sensory, because that will help with those raw emotions. And find other nannies. Nobody's going to understand this. As much as they want to, no one who has not been a nanny is going to understand this grief. So find somebody that you can talk to, whether they're in your own hometown or whether they're far away, who you can express all of this to. And then remember to practice good self-care, which doesn't just mean taking a bath and eating that hot fudge sundae. It means exercising, meditating if that's your thing. Find a new hobby, find some ways. Make sure you're eating, make sure you're getting enough sleep, because grief can cause bad insomnia. So be kind to your body while your emotions are handling all of this. Make sure that you set up boundaries, both for you and for the family, about, again, how you want to be contacted and how much access you have to the kids, how much they have to you. Make sure that you are clear but kind, right? About how it's all going to work. And just remember, so you can't change this situation. Everybody's going to leave a family, but you can decide how you're going to handle it. So you can't change the wind, but you can adjust the sails, is one of my favorite things to tell myself. I can't change what's happening. This is an inevitable part of being in a nanny position, but you can, do the best that you can do to be kind to everybody else. Now, I forgot a couple of things that had just occurred to me. One, I want to say this and I want to say it loud. Please do not ever quit a family via text message. I love you all. I love text messaging. No, I really don't. But I miss being on the phone. But you don't want to quit a job with a text message. You don't want to quit a job over the phone unless you absolutely have to. It really is a conversation that demands in person. You would want to be treated that way, I'm guessing, and maybe not, and then I'm wrong. But I think that, again, it's a difficult situation, so it demands an in-person, unless you're in a situation that's you're in danger or is so toxic. But then also in writing. Families, it's good. So I usually have a letter. I I've heard nannies do it both ways. You have to know how the family's going to do it. Either leave the letter, then talk to them the next day, or I usually ask to sit down with them, talk to them, tell them, and then leave a letter so that there's something written too. So that just in case I don't say the right thing in that moment, then I have a letter too. And remember, broken record is the technique where you're just going to keep saying the same thing over and over again if they try to push you on any of these elements. It's just not the right fit for me right now. It's been such an honor. I really appreciate my time. I've learned so much from your kids. I hope to have a great relationship with you, but this is just not a right fit for me right now. I need to move on. That was one question I always get. Now I can't remember the other one. So I am going to stop sharing my screen now. Well, I'm going to try, but my mouse is hidden. So maybe I can do this. Yes. And then if you can unmute and ask questions or put them in the thing. And if you have a situation, I'm happy to help you here. Or if it's private and you want to email me, I'm Sue Downey at nannypalooza.com, which I'm putting it in the chat right now too. I'm always happy to answer questions. I'm not I don't always have the right answer, but I've likely experienced it before and can tell you what I screwed up so that you don't make the same mistakes. It's so quiet when everyone's muted. I can't wait till we can all be in rooms together again. Wouldn't it be nice? Okay, I guess nobody has any questions. It's a hard thing, so don't be afraid to reach out for help. That's why being a member of INA is helpful. It's why going to conferences like INA or Nannypalooza are helpful. If you don't have somebody local, don't be hesitant to reach out to anybody who's in the nanny community. And if you don't know anyone in the nanny community, reach out to me. It's really hard, and it's hard every time.
I actually have a question.
Oh, good. Yes.
Sorry. How do you navigate if you have a family who you've been close to and mean like they were your unicorn family, but for some reason you're leaving? What do you do if they're not responsive or they just want a clean break? They just want you to come in Friday and leave. So how do you still handle that professionally?
Well, I think you have to respect their wishes. So you have to, I would at least make one plea that for the kids' sake, a little more time would be helpful. And I would couch that in, again, doing what's best for the kid. So I might say to the parents something like, I know that you want this to be a clean break, and I totally respect that. And if that's what you want to do, that's great. I kind of feel like it might be better for the kids if there's a little bit more time to this and it's not so abrupt. I feel like it would help them continue to trust me, and that will be helpful for their future relationship with other nannies. I think it might be a little bit easier. But if you don't want to do it that way, I totally get it. Give them a chance to respond. If they still are adamant about that, I would say great. But again, it would be important to me to have some further contact down the road. We're all hurting right now. This is an uncomfortable situation for all of us, and I'm truly sorry about that. But can we make a date on the calendar where we plan to go out to eat, or where I could at least see the kids? Could I come and babysit and try to get that sort of future date on the calendar? That's how I think I would handle it. But if anybody else has any other suggestions, does that help at all, Jessica?
Yeah, it's just I was relating to where you were talking about young Sue, like in the young in the nanny game, and I um, definitely made some of those, I guess, mistakes, or like made those kind of things. So it was like
Yeah.
really nice to like feel like I'm not the only person that's ever done that.
Right. Yeah.
And I've just in my past I've had families like that I was very close to, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, we just want you to go. It'll be
Right.
easier for us. And I've just wondered how someone would handle that.
And I think for some families, it probably is easier for them. But I would contend that after a short period of being hurt and angry, there's potential there to heal that if you can just get them to give you a chance to develop a new kind of relationship. So, um, you know, it's super hard. But listen, I've made more mistakes, oh my gosh, than all of you put together. That is experience, right? Like that comes with the territory, because there's no book. Like there's no book on how to do this. There's no experts except nannies that have done it a lot. Okay, Jocelyn in the chat says, I have a best case scenario, but still having trouble getting my message across. Work for an absolute unicorn family. That's great. Nothing could be better. However, the two boys are aging out of my specialty, 0 to 5, and I'm wanting to transition to newborn care specialist. Totally makes sense. The family's very stubborn and loving and having a hard time cutting the cord. They keep trying to add benefits and incentives for you to stay, bargaining, but are very clear they won't be having any more kids. How do I tell them I'm moving my career in a younger direction when they absolutely refuse to hear it? You have to broken record. That's the answer to that one. You have to set a date and say, this is the end of my sorry, Jen just made a face. This is no longer a good fit for me. I'm truly devastated that it's not. I loved being with your family, but I need to move on. In this case, you can tell them honestly, but I wouldn't necessarily tell the kids, depending on how old the kids are, um, that that you're wanting some new challenges, and that you're shifting your career, and then if you just have to set a date and say, this is it. I need to make this move. And then I would follow that up quickly again with, hey, I can't be your nanny anymore, but maybe I could be your regular babysitter. Even if the kids are a little older and don't need a babysitter, maybe we could just, you guys could go out to dinner every once in a while, and I could come and hang out with the kids. And maybe we make it a regular thing at first, and then it will gradually, like, whatever. But maybe it's, once a month there's a Friday that's, and maybe it's not babysit. Maybe, like, the family I work for now, I've worked for going on 11 years, and like, I love the parents as much as the kids, different ways. But definitely I'm gonna want to be friends with them, like, when this relationship ends. So maybe it's family fun night and we all get together and watch a movie once a month from now, and like, let them know that you can still be in the kids' lives and in their life in a different way, and paint a picture of what that looks like. We're gonna have family fun nights, or let's start a book club as a family, and let's all read the same book and get together and do that, or whatever it is. Try to think of ways that you can paint them a picture of how you can still be a part of their lives, and be careful not to overpromise. Like, you never want to give more than you're willing to, because you'll be resentful, and that's not good for anyone. But yeah, that's tough. It's so hard to it's hard to leave a family that you have conflict with. It's just as hard to leave a family that you love. But there are reasons that it doesn't work out, and it's so hard. And you get sucked into that whole, well, here's more money. Well, money is great, but it's not everything. Or, here, we'll do this. Or I had a family once. It's like, well, we'll like get a baby nanny share. I'm like, wait, that's making my job way harder. That's not going to make it better. Like, there's just a time to leave, and it sucks. Sorry for the graphic language, but that's just it. Yeah. Anybody else?
I just wanted to say that I've been in the throes of this. I just left my nanny family of 7 years. And it's definitely the hardest part of the job. Leaving, whether it's good terms, bad terms, whether you still see them all the time, don't see them anymore, it is the worst part. It's the hardest part, it's the worst part, it's the part that nobody can prepare you for. So thank you, Sue. This was super valuable, and it was great. I wish I saw this a couple months ago.
Well, again, I'm always available. Well, not always available, especially right now because I have a new baby. But but I'm always willing to try to email, or if you need help finding resources, or if you just need somebody to listen to. Bonding with the new family, Sydney. I'm going to do this quick because we're almost out of time, but if anybody has ideas of bonding with the new family while you're still heartsick over leaving your previous family, you can put them in the chat really quick. And let me tell you two things about that. One, before you give notice, and really right now, if you should always have at least a month's salary, like at least a month of what you need to pay your bills in the bank. You need at least 1 month, because we are nannies and you can be let go at any time and you don't know. And so, but especially if you're going to give notice, make sure you have a financial cushion, because what Jen just put in the thing is true. Time. I used to go straight from one job to the other until I realized that I was an idiot. You need to give yourself time. Now, usually I can only afford to take that week or whatever in between jobs, but giving yourself time will help you when you start a new job, if you can. If you can't, if you're still heartsick and you're in a new job already, the most important thing I think for bonding is establishing rituals. So find something that the new kids like, or that you could get them to like, and start creating rituals. A certain song that you always sing at a certain time, a movie day, a game that you guys play together that you play. Think of things that, and it depends on the ages of the kids, suggest sticking around one afternoon or something, and sitting down with the parents and the kids and having a special snack or something. Time is really, Jen's right, it's time. But if you want to speed it up, rituals can help that, I think. I don't know if anybody else has any brilliant ideas, but
I think even giving yourself time in the new job to realize that, it's not going to be easy, and it's going to take, you're not just going to walk into a house and have a bond with these kids. Giving yourself that grace that, like, it's not going to happen overnight or automatically. Yeah, time's the magic word.
I sometimes think also fake it till you make it. Like, if you sort of pretend that it's there, it will come faster. Not, you don't want to be fake or lie, but yeah. All right, we have to go because it's time, and I could talk all night. I need one of those big hooks that you take people off. I'm so thankful that you came. Thanks so much for being a part of INA, and for giving up your time tonight. And if there's anything we can do for you, please make sure to let us know.
Thank you so much. That was great.